Hi, everyone. Welcome to our LinkedIn Live about source reduction. And we're happy you joined us today. We're talking about source reduction, the 5 pathways. We'll do a little update on EPR specifically in California. And then when we finish up, we're going to leave a few minutes for questions. So let's dig right in. I'm Jessie Schwartz. I am the founder of Strategic Packaging Partners, and I'm joined today by Eric. And Eric is all things EPR. He's a wealth of knowledge. We're super happy to have you here. So thanks for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure, as always, Jessie.
All right, so the 5 pathways to source reduction. First, we want to start with a little update. We have 2 laws in California, State Bill 343 and State Bill 54. State Bill 54 is around EPR and the legislation around how to do EPR, and 343 is this truth in labeling legislation. It's what can you label recycling? And Eric, what happened with that bill last week?
No, this was really exciting. I think a lot of companies, most producers were really soldiering down the field. Like last week, I was helping an ice cream company and like reviewing all their artwork. And the reality is like, they're like, we don't know what the right on-pack messaging should be, right? And so in some cases they had, the chasing arrows and the resin identification code, and other ones they say, please recycle. And, but what has happened, though, is as producers have kind of been moving forward to this deadline, last week a federal judge essentially granted a preliminary injunction blocking the California Attorney General from enforcing State Bill 343. And as you said, that's the truth in labeling law, right? So that's all the on-pack messaging. And that was supposed to kick off on October 4th. So like, what does that mean? It means that the enforcement of 343, the rules are temporarily blocked by members of the 18 plaintiff trade associations. But be careful, because the law itself is still on the books. Only the enforcement of the law is on hold until a decision by the court is being made. So if you're that ice cream brand or you're a producer, please continue to move forward as if nothing happened. With this is somewhat of just noise, right? Like, we don't want brands like, okay, this means we don't have to do anything. It's like, no, not at all. Like, we actually want you to keep moving forward. Look, there's going to be appeals. I think it's wise that brand owners and producers just continue to take measures that they've already begun for what it's worth. And it just, look, this just is another example of how quickly things can change, or how quickly things can be critical, that, again, how brand owners need to stay on top of everything. So again, we're not providing legal advice. We're just like legislation interpreters here. But again, as a packaging steward of the legislation, along with how we design and rethink packaging and putting in consumers' hands, ultimately getting recycled. Again, what you put on pack matters, and the law is still the law. And so again, we hope companies just simply continue to still study and evaluate their packaging and do the right thing.
Yeah, and so as a reminder, this bill was to say, if your packaging material isn't widely recyclable, you can't label it with chasing arrows designation. And so that law we talked about last time was there's a little bit of issue between 343 and 54, because if State Bill 54 says everything in California must be recyclable or compostable by 2032, but then you can't label for it, like how do we get there? And so, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with this, but we're just calling it out that that's a recent change. But like Eric said, continue down the path that you were in terms of labeling. I know a lot of producers are pulling off how to recycle tiles, and they're doing different things to be compliant with the California State Bill 343 as it was written. And as a reminder, we have seen other lawsuits. The National Wholesaler Association presented a lawsuit to Oregon, but that's just between that organization in the state. So you can't tag along, if that makes sense. You can't join that lawsuit as well. It's strictly between how the law applies to the members of that association. Do you have anything to add on that?
No, it's just, again, if people are concerned about the law, like, look, the recommendation we're saying is like, have your lawyers talk to their lawyers, right? So if you have a specific question or concern, make sure you're your legal counsel within your own organization talks to CalRecycle and or the Circular Action Alliance. Again, that's not a deflection, but that's really like, that's the right path again
Yes.
to ensure that the right people are because again, it's statutory requirements, like the right people are having the right conversation.
Yes, and not the law isn't super specific, and so you need to understand how it specifically applies, and that's what we're saying. So okay, cool. So SB 54 is all about producer responsibility. So producers, kind of the 101 is to register with a pro, and then you're going to be shooting for these targets, California's targets of everything 25% source reduction. And what that means is they had a baseline of 2023. So in 2024, in 2025, everybody submitted what they sent into the state, how much plastic, the weight of the plastic, the type of plastic, and that's kind of the baseline. And so now the source reduction plan then is every producer has been given that allotment of plastic material from the 2023 baseline. So how are you going to reduce that by 25% by 2032? Do you have anything to add to that, Eric?
Yeah, it's more metaphorical. I would say a lot of companies have been working on packaging with their pencil and, figuring out, their designs and that. I'd say flip the switch and get a red pencil, because now time is of the essence, because the deadline is August 1st, where brand owners have to then submit a plan of action. It's again a covenant, it's a commitment. The plan is actually requiring companies to map out, the next 5 years as far as how much, again, that baseline you talked about, Jesse, that's the year that matters. That's the year they're going to be measured against. So whatever you're submitting, whatever your data was submitted for 2023, that's it, right? Like that is your budget going forward. Yeah. So a lot of the conversations I've had around with customers, our brand owners and producers, my customers, what they're saying is they're like, well, Eric, like we intend to grow. We intend to make profit and make more of, ice cream or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, I hear you. But the requirement is the 25% is the goal within the legislative plan itself, right? The EPR. So it doesn't mean you can't go over that. And in some cases, you might have to, because if you're going to be part of the solution of submitting your plans, you have to map out how much packaging, if you did nothing, the status quo, and didn't change any of your packaging, you can predict roughly about how much packaging you're going to put in the marketplace by 2032 and work backwards. That's what they're saying. And then subsequently look at every year, tally that all up, and there's how much you need to buy, right? To be able to produce, pack, ship, distribute, and sell your product to their consumer. But if you're going to grow as well on top of that, let's just say you were just flat, like, okay, that's pretty easy. But if you're going to grow, you have to do 25%, and you might have to do a 40 or 50% reduction because of your growth, right? So devil's in the details of when you're writing up your plan. And so that's why I'm saying, a lot of companies right now, like they had line of sight of like what their data was telling them from their EPR reports. And now it's kind of code red, right? As far as you need to make this next deadline because it will be enforced. Now, to what degree? I don't think we have intel on that, Jesse, as far as like how CAA is going to enforce that. CAA isn't on the call right now, but we're also just looking towards like, look, the best thing you can do is try to make that cutoff. Try to submit your plan. And again, the plan is if you go in your portal into CAA, they provided you a workbook. They provide the 5 pathways. If you don't understand the pathways, like see myself and Jesse after the show, right? Like this is how we're helping companies, again, write up their plan and understand, okay, here is all of your components. Now, again, with source reduction, understand we are only talking about plastic. We're not talking about paper. Not that you can't reduce by paper, using paper, but again, as you're saying here on the slides, like use less, measure it, and make it work. Making it work means find the invisible problems that you didn't really know until the data is telling you, oh, this is going to cost us a lot of money in the next 5 years. This is also going to live across the line within our source reduction plan, and that kind of bubbles up to the top of one, like we know what we have to focus on. Look, this isn't easy either, right? Like I was
Right.
working for a snack company, and they were like, well, we flow wrap everything in polypropylene, like it works really well. And I'm like, I'm sure it does. You're getting the right, it's machine direction. It's running super fast. It's also providing shelf life barrier properties that you need. And it's relatively inexpensive. To flip
Right.
that all to paper is going to take a huge lift. And so, again, having a packaging engineering resource to be able to help get the alternative materials out there. And again, but priority one is the plan is due literally around 9 to 10 days. So if you don't know how to write a plan, like again, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you do that. But again, that's like the next waypoint on the horizon, right? On kind of the EPR spectrum here in the US.
Yes. And there's two different ways to get source reduction, is to reduce plastic component or plastic weight. And there's 5 different pathways that we want to go through to get to these source reduction metrics. And so we're going to dig into those just a little bit. Another view of what California State Bill 54 is looking to do. And then we're going into the 5 pathways. So there's the pathway of elimination. And this is eliminating components. So it's eliminating a component that you don't need. Right sizing, so reducing the head space and unused space in a package. Lightweighting, which is down gauging and optimizing the structure. Shifting the model away from single use to more reusable or refillable containers. And then shifting a format, one that is more recyclable or compostable.
Yeah, and know that you also have to do a combination of these. Like you can't just do one, right? Like you actually have to, again, in your plan, you can't just say, oh, we're going to put everything 100 recycled content and get credit. That only is a certain percentage, right, that can be applied to getting your 25% goal. But again, the strategy should really be around, think about all of these lenses, right? That's the best way I can describe like the pathways, how they're kind of called. Think of them as like you're literally looking through a lens, right? And you're like, okay, you're looking through a lens of what can I eliminate, right? So if you're looking at your entire portfolio, because when you submitted your data to California, one of the key things, right, is that yes, they want the material weight times about the number of units that you sold, but they also asked you for the number of components. And so that was the other key aspect, because if you can then eliminate a component or right size a component or lightweight it, so on and so forth, one of the pathways or one of the lenses, then that's how you can that's how you get to achieve your source reduction strategy. So again, that's kind of, again, what's been interesting and now is since June 1st, the day after everybody took a break from submitting their reports, hopefully everybody was on time and on the call, and is that the data really revealed a lot of the areas of focus, right? And so what I've been helping brand owners figure out is, look, this is about speed, focus, and trust. So the speed is like, look, it's feeling the regulatory pressures, right? Of like, now you have to do EPR every single year and submit the data. And then on top of that, you have to submit these source reduction strategies and prepare your business in a way to have the data and the specifications behind it, the evidence to ensure like, okay, we were able to do this, right? So the proof is in trust or verification. So that preparedness aspect is, again, what you need to be able to do or able to communicate. Like it's one thing to say, hey, we were able to reduce our go from 0 PCR content to 85%. Okay, great. But do you have the specifications and the data to back that up, right? To make that claim.
To prove that was accurate.
Yeah, it's kind of going back to like State Bill 343 and the Truth in Labeling Act, same type of thing. If you're going to make an environmental claim on your packaging with your product, educating and inspiring your consumer on what to do, you better have some evidence to back it up, right? So again, being so closely affiliated with, look, and I love Green Blue and I love the Sustainable Packaging Coalition, been working with them since 2008. I know, just dated myself, but look, they have the how to recycle label. That whole team can help you like understand on that aspect, trust through verification. So in some cases, leaning into an organization such as the How to Recycle scheme, it's like you can sleep at night, right? You know, like, look, they've got your back of what you put on pack, right?
Mhm.
So that's again, what I actually think is a sound strategy of like, work with third parties, right, to help you understanding the legislation, but ultimately like creating your plans. And then ultimately, like, look, this isn't all for naught. Like, I hear a lot of companies like, this is just a tremendous amount of work and I don't get it. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, hold on. Like, the reality is you're being part of now of the solution. You're not
Right.
putting a wasteful design into the marketplace. You're now you are creating your packaging maybe for the first time through a lens of responsibility. And again, that's what the legislation ultimately is going to do. Now,
Yes.
one comment, Jesse, I just want to make before I pitch the mic back over to you is that with California, I got to understand they've hired CAA to deliver the EPR program. So what they need you to do is submit your plan, right?
Yes.
And the plan is a plan, right? It doesn't mean like everybody has a crystal ball here and like what's going to happen in the next 5 years. Don't really know. But the whole goal is at least have a pathway, a route of intention, what you think your growth can go, because that's what CAA needs in order to go, okay, everybody's submitted their data, everybody's submitted their plan. Now CAA can take the money funded from everybody paying and pay to play here and EPR, and then they can go, okay, based on what everybody's plan is of how much material is going to be imported in the state of California, then they can focus and have speed and agility on, okay, this is what the industry needs. And so they can then enhance that part of that recovery
Yes.
program and process, the infrastructure, right? As far as how to take back and recover more materials. And that's the whole,
Yes.
that's
That's the
the
point.
that's the whole Simon Sinek why, right? Like that's
Mhm.
why all of this is kind of in play. And again, I think it's exciting because brand owners for the first time actually have a design playbook. They're being
Yes.
told what you can do and what you can't do. And if you
Yeah.
don't, and if you live across the line, look, how strict is this going to be? Look, I'm
Mhm.
not the enforcer, but I can tell you that
Yeah.
it's real. There's a lot of companies out there that are getting the letters from CAA going like, you're late or your data's incomplete, or worst case scenario down the road that you may actually have to remove your product from shelf
Yeah.
altogether.
Well, and I think it's important to remember that packaging hasn't been center stage in the past. It's in the brand design, it's in the marketing, it's getting the product to the consumer, a product that delights the consumer, and they come back and buy it again. And there's loads of organizations that don't have even a central repository for any of their specifications. A lot of ERP systems don't have great places to put packaging data. It just hasn't been a module, like a robust module. And so for a long time, packaging has kind of lagged in completeness around organizations understanding it and being able to use it as a lever to increase profitability and to deliver a more sustainable package, like all the things. It's hard to set aside money for packaging to, go figure something out that's go get all of our packaging data together. Okay, well, what's the trade-off? It's kind of hard to justify that when there's a 300 other priorities screaming at you, right, for the dollars. But now EPR is saying, like, time out, like you need to know what your packaging is. And oh, by the way, once you do know that, it's incredibly powerful. So having the mandate of reporting what types of materials you have and what it's really going to be powerful. So in terms of the 5 pathways to source reduction, when you can match up your sales data with your BOMs, with your packaging specifications, you can start seeing themes. Let's say you never knew you had 7 different roll widths, right? Well, that could be a pathway to eliminating some material, reducing the amount of material put into the system. Oh, and by the way, now you have fewer changeovers because you're running, fewer roll widths, and it can just benefit the whole system. So I think this could really open up a lot of opportunities for producers.
I think it's
Right.
not only the producers, I think it's the packaging suppliers, Jesse. I think
Sure.
what's also going to happen is if you're you know, if you're Print Pack, and look, Print Pack was one of my most beloved suppliers when I first started this journey in packaging way back in the 1900s. Let's just say that. Right. So I was making ice cream packaging back in the day, and Print Pack was a strategic supplier. And they were always coming to the table with innovative solutions at that time, right? Now, the print packs of today have to think about, hey, to remain relevant, remain competitive, to, they've got a product that they want to sell as well, and they want to be part of the solution. And so they're going to help, work with the producers and the brand owners, to provide a viable product that meets all of these criteria of the regulatory pressures, right? So I think there's going to be two camps of suppliers, right? There's going to be one camp that's like, we're just going to wait this out. We're going to see what happens and just kind of remain status quo. The other ones, the other suppliers that are innovative, they're thinking differently. They're thinking big too. They're like, look, we know that not to say that the spotlight's on them, that they've been part of the problem. It's more of like, hey, we are where we are. The design criteria is now known. The outcome of what we're all now trying to achieve in extended producer responsibility is now the definitive moment for all of us to respond to. So if you're a supplier out there, if you're not using your red pencil to come up with a whole pipeline of innovative materials, I would absolutely try to remain relevant and competitive, because that's what the producers are going to be looking for.
Absolutely.
They're going to be looking for those attributes.
They are. And I think it is an exciting time for packaging, because there's a lot of times where, all well intended, there have been some great solutions out there, but because of cost, they never make it to market.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point, Jesse. Cost. Everything has always been, sourcing directors out there trying to, like, we have a productivity measure and we're trying to reduce our costs. That's great and all. Do that, but in the same vein, now you actually have to do, the sustainable approach, the responsibility approach, again, because of the legislation. So, and I think the result of trying to be innovative and trying to find sustainably made solutions will result ultimately in two key things. One, you're gonna get the cost savings. Doing all the 5 pathways on the screen, you are gonna garner cost savings. I can guarantee it. That's gonna help your bottom line. Two, your company is going to be then known for being a responsible organization. Thus, your customer profile, who you're targeting as well to buy your products, you can now stand on your own soapbox and say, hey, these are all the great changes that we've made, right? So, I mean, within organizations, we're also seeing like marketing teams for the first time going like, I had no idea that this is something we had to do. We want to also then make that into our own story, right? We were doing it this way, and now we're going to do it this other way because it's the right thing to do. And oh, by the way, it was it was part of the law. We had no choice, right?
Right.
But again, that I think is going to be the other outcome of all of this, and hopefully, Jesse, by 2032, and more states will come on. Creating their own initiatives, and when you go to those states, like, we're just going to hopefully see less waste and less problematic packaging being sold in the marketplace.
Well, and ultimately making recycling easier, because it's very complicated right now, and we have just kind of, terrible quality outputs of a lot of these recyclable resins that, PCR is just a really good stock of PCR is hard to find, and it's really difficult to process a lot of the plastic waste because nobody knows what to do with it. So they either wish cycle and then it messes things up, or, so EPR should make, SB 54 should make recycling easier for people. So we can, because only 9% of the recyclable plastics in this country actually get recycled.
It was kind of you're talking kind of the utopian world, like, and I think there is actually moments to think like that. I remember Olga over at Green Blue, like, a couple of years ago now, I think she was standing up and gave a presentation around, she kind of described the future that we all would like to live in, right? Where all packaging put in the marketplace was designed with intention, obviously to sell, but then also to be used and then also to be recovered, right? And so she kind of talked around this great, like, scenario of like, hey, everybody was designing within the confines of the end of life, right? To recovery process of closing the loop, right? Getting the materials back. And again, like, I think that we've seen EPR play out very well in Europe and elsewhere, but again, it's exciting that it's here in the US. I think there's just been a steep learning curve for a lot of companies, and they're figuring out quickly that, there is a price tag now in your packaging decisions and packaging designs.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have a few minutes left. I'm going to run through the 5 pathways, and then I'll keep an eye out for questions. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to post them. So elimination is removing components. So if you have a plastic bottle and you have a plastic label, can you remove that plastic label? That's the elimination piece.
Be careful of that too, because you have to eliminate it without replacing it as well, right? Like,
Oh,
so you
right.
can't eliminate
Yeah.
it and then replace. You can remove it, but then you can't replace it with something else. So you got to be careful there.
Okay, and then pathways 2 and 3 are all about removing the extra space and then lightweighting. And then pathway 4 is around reusable and refillable. And 5 is the shift to formats, like switching to a recyclable film. And again, there's different percentages. You can't get all of your 25% source reduction from switching to a recyclable material. Anything you want to say about that?
I think it's just really, again, just understand the solution's going to be a common. The solutions of achieving your source reduction plans is going to be a combination of these things. So again, if you have packaging engineers within your organization, now is the time to go knock on their desk and on their door and be like, hey, you know, what have you seen? Like, again, to me, again, I think that's the best opportunity. And if you don't have packaging engineers, not to say go hire one, but like, they're out there and they can help you.
Yeah.
Again, look at your data, look at your packaging portfolio and go, there's the aha moments, right? Like, get that high overview to looking at, again, all aspects of, adding PCR, adding, lightweighting, right sizing, eliminating, which I always say, the other acronym here, if you want to give one acronym for all of these pathways, I would call it ASAP. ASAP is always like a sense of urgency, but it also, for me as a designer, has always meant as simple as possible.
Yes.
Can you make your design as simple as possible? And that's not easy to do. Like when you're trying to ship a bicycle, with aerospace technology, and if you buy a new cyclocross bike this fall, they can be on the upwards of $10,000 to $15,000 for a new bike, right? So to eliminate the packaging and still protect the product in transit and still bring joy during the unboxing experience, you can't sacrifice that either. If you're in the food world, now it's like, I'm going to make some of these, they're trade-offs, right? Like, I might lightweight, I may swap out the material, but the other imbalance is going to be, I may have to sacrifice some of my shelf stability. So these are real, not to say trade-offs, but like, these are real decision points of inflection to think about when you are engineering your program forward.
And I think that's an important piece, is that sometimes packaging engineers are seen not maybe for the cross-functional experts that they are, but when you think about getting a new material and switching to something that's going to run on the machine differently, it's going to potentially impact shelf life, or at least you want to test for it. How does it impact your supply chain? Who do you have on your team who can give you a couple different scenarios for a pallet pattern? Really digging into the data that you have, because there's opportunities everywhere. And so we're coming up at time, and just letting everybody know that we are offering a source reduction readiness workshop to help your team kind of figure out, okay, where are you answering these questions here? How do you build a plan? What will California expect? Where should you focus? And helping you make these decisions for your business, and seeing EPR as a way that you can really harness the data that you have to make really good decisions for your business. And we'd be happy to help you with that. I'm just going to scan really quick.
Any questions before?
Okay, so we did put a link in the chat for the readiness workshop if you're interested in talking more, to see if we could help you out. We'll also send it in a message after the live. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse, again for having me, and take care, everybody. Bye for now.